Let's start with the biggest round, one of the biggest rounds so far that we've seen this year, which is JetHR. So let's talk about this very interesting Series A. So JetHR, HR tech startup, raising 25 million in a growth round from Base10 Partner, Exor Venture, and Italian Founders Fund. Very, very interesting. JetHR has been like on the radar like for a little bit of time. One of the fastest growing company for sure. There is a few of insight that we should definitely share because it's a great success case for Italy and for Italian founders. I mean, let's not forget that the founder is a very successful second time, at least a second time founder that I know of. So very, very interesting. A few pointers that I thought was very, very interesting were the fact that basically in terms of integration and growth, two impressive numbers just to give some KPIs. So basically JetHR integrates with over 600 government entities in Italy. So basically imagine that, there is a massive work in integration, trying to make bureaucracy like smooth. Very, very interesting challenge. They started off with payroll. And again, talking about payroll, I think in Italy, basically payroll processing is over 30 euro per employee per month as like an overall cost, which is 5 times higher than the US. So just to give some like a comparison over here. So interesting market, very critical, very clunky, a lot of like complexities, a lot of like pain in the head essentially for like small and medium companies. So basically is a very, very interesting business to be in for sure. And that definitely shows in the growth. So imagine this, in 2024, they achieved 6 times increase in annual recurring revenue. And basically they expanded the customer base to 700 small and medium enterprise, most of which, think about this, are around 15 people. So very interesting because the target this is kind of the core of Italy in a way. Companies of different sort between like 15 to 20 people, kind of the backbone of the Italian like economy in a way. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, if you think about it, in that market, payroll management is almost always outsourced to a service provider that manages all of it. So of course, if you go to the big enterprises, payroll is probably already incorporated in the technology stack and the internal processes. But there's a huge amount of enterprises in Italy with less than like 100 employees, and this is all everything is outsourced. So it is actually a huge opportunity. Outsourced and mostly still hand work, hand
Yep.
management, hand managed. So excellent intuition. And to further give some information about JetHR. So you say they've been around for a while, but not for so long. Since the very first round, the pre-seed round, um, dates back to 2023. So it's only 2 years back, less than 2 years back, I believe. But it
Yeah.
was June. So exactly, it was June tomorrow. So it's 2 years tomorrow since the announcement of the pre-seed round.
Interesting. So definitely a great example on, basically a company that scales really fast and reaches velocity very, very fast. So probably one of the fastest we've seen this year so far, I would say. I mean, among the top three, I would say, if like fastest growth companies like happening in Italy right now. So another interesting element that I thought it was very curious is that even one thing, not many people know is that JTHR was about to be close to break even before this round. So another kind of great indicator of the kind of health of the company that basically is using effectively all this round for like massive growth and to basically do this like tiny step in reaching break even. Well, I say tiny just because they were already there, but it's a huge deal. But definitely, like the injection of capital is definitely something that is going to propel them like very, very far. So very, very interesting.
Mm-mm. Now, one has to wonder whether, since this is a very deep market, a deep problem to the Italian market, seeing these international investors coming in will create a further push. Maybe they already have some, I don't know, but reading the articles, you have the sensation that there will be some push to look at international markets, because the problem is probably deep also somewhere in Europe, to name other countries. Even though there are operators over there, so there will be a bit more competition, but
Yeah,
only the Italian market is deep. So
absolutely,
it'll be
absolutely.
interesting.
And with that, that's a great segue about talking about investors. So this is basically the lead investor for this round is essentially one firm, which is Base10 Partners. Basically, this is an investment firm with 1.3 billion in asset under management. In their portfolio, they include a bunch of like a very, very famous company, just to mention a few, like Figma, Notion, and the general partner, the founder, Ade, is essentially the one that built it. It's a team of like about 20, 25 people, so it's a kind of a big firm. And they're really pushing, from what I understand, what they define as automation for the real economy. So very concrete and practical problems that are solved through digital solutions and applications. So very, very interesting. And it's interesting because this is, I believe, one of the first, well, if not the first, investment that they did in Italy. So it's a very massive signal. Good for the ecosystem again. And this is one way to actually get access to even like further round later on down the road. And it's a great signal to the international markets as well, I would say.
Yeah, super.
All right, so let's talking about signals. Let's talk about what is finally happening, or we're seeing happening in the Italian economy, where legacy business are acquiring startup companies and kind of unblocking what we've been talking for a while, which is the sort of slowdown of M&A, the slowdown of IPOs, and essentially all the exit possibilities that a venture funds might have. So let's talk about Zucchetti acquiring Vikey, which basically gave an exit for Zest Group, CDP, and Italian Angel for Growth. So two interesting things, I would say. So first of all, Zucchetti has always been very much in the forefront of acquiring companies to grow the business. So Zucchetti started, I would say, like an HR management software and kind of transitioned to different like modules. So one of the very well-known, probably one of the most used software, administration software in Italy, but very forward-looking in terms of looking into what's happening in the startup ecosystem. So this is not their first rodeo. They've been working with startup for a while. And yeah, great news. And that's the first point. The second point, as Nick, you were already hinting to, is the fact that there are exit for some of the core investors that believed in the firm since the beginning. So very good news.
Yeah. What you're mentioning is that we were discussing with Giacomo, and the basic idea is liquidity is always good. And from the articles, from what we read, I mean, maybe not a infinitely huge exit, but there are some multiples on the table. Cash is coming back, so this is very good for the ecosystem and proving that the engine is marching onward. So excellent signal.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's interesting also because in long term, which, it's something I wonder, but I don't have an answer for that, like how fast the liquidity back to the funds will got redeployed in the ecosystem. Huge question. But still is the first step to do in order to actually activate the cycle. So, even if it's going to take a while, still is a good sign, is a good and healthy signal. No matter what, I would say. But yeah, let's see. And definitely congrats to all the teams, Zest, CDP, and yeah, and YAG, of course.
Yeah, I was thinking that if you run the numbers, we really need a lot of liquidity in the coming decade. You think about it, GDP is deploying how many? 4 billion.
At
If you
least.
think that these 4 billion will
Yeah.
bring along other four, so half and half from the private sector, other investors, so it's 8 billion being deployed. in the next decade. So 8 billion, 10-15% of companies that generate returns is like we need how many? 50, 80, 100 billion of returns from the market.
Yeah, something like that. It's a challenge.
Not too shabby, not too shabby.
Not too shabby, not too shabby. Yeah, completely.
Yeah. But we are here for the ride, so right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, and it's accelerating. I mean, think about what is happening in
mm,
AI, of course. And like, the next unicorn is going to be a one-person company, apparently. That's what's the word on the market. Is that going to happen in Italy as well at some point? Probably. Why not? It can. So yeah, no, we're here for the ride, and we're here to see the acceleration
yeah.
happening for sure. So super
It's curious
promising.
because the one person unicorn wouldn't need JetHR. So that's kind of
Yeah, some people will be kicked in the head because of that. Exactly. It's a change of services for sure. Interesting.
lovely.
Awesome. One thing to mention, I think, is the fact that Vikey is a good sort of case studies in a way for the Italian ecosystem because it was born inside the university accelerator and then it got accelerated further through CDP, the different programs. And then, of course, it got like exited at the end through M&A. So it's a good case. It's not easy to kind of take it from point A to point B. There are not many successful company doing that, but definitely a good job with Vicky doing this kind of path. All right, moving on. Let's talk about maybe what is happening in the international marketing, in the international markets, and how Italian investors are actually looking into abroad. So Neva SGR investing in Commonwealth Fusion System, which is basically one of the unique player in nuclear fusion technology. So interesting. Neva has been around for a long time. They've been basically in the forefront of investing in venture funds, companies. Backed by Intesa Sanpaolo, I think. So it's a very interesting sort of structure. The people in the company they've been like forward looking, and yeah, they're not looking only in Italy. So that's definitely like a great investor trying to push the international like outlook. So very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is the second important round involving fusion technology and Italian-related operators in how many? A couple of weeks. So we have Proxima Fusion, which
Good
has
point.
Italian founders among the team, and that was super cool. And now we have Neva investing in another fusion company. So the trend here is interesting. So there's some Italian connection into the next generation fusion systems.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe it's gonna
Interesting
be
trend, right?
something. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Maybe yeah, there's
and
gonna
Neva
be
is indeed investing.
yeah, maybe it's
It's
gonna be the PayPal energy mafia from Italy kind of kind of thing. There is like a lot of great founders in the industry. So very, very interesting and curious to see.
might be. And the other observation I have is that Neva is investing in a lot of next generation technologies. So they have been deploying capital in quantum technologies. I think at least a couple of Israeli companies, or at least a couple of rounds in Israeli companies in quantum technology. Now fusion. So very interesting long-term
Yeah,
strategy from Neva. Super interesting.
beautiful. All right, let's conclude maybe with mentioning like an article from Roberto Bonanzinga for the philosophical approach for investor-founder alignment. So I thought it was very curious because usually, people talk about, product market fit, founder market fit, channel market, channel product fit, etc., etc. But sometimes there is this like philosophical misalignment happening between the kind of investor and the kind of company. So the great point, Roberto always is very sharp and lucid in his analysis. He's very like straight to the point and very minimalistic and but really insightful. So I really recommend people to take a look. is the fact that actually there is, expectation involved. There is an element of the maturity of company that needs to be considered when VCs invest and work with startup founders in order to avoid misalignment in terms of like a push and expectations. Because the worst it can happen is, a late stage fund maybe getting convinced to invest in an early stage company and then the parameters do not match or vice versa. So, and that's when friction is going to happen and problems are going to happen. I don't know if you, Nick, have something to say about this, but I thought it was definitely like a very interesting reminder, which is not obvious for sure.
No, actually, you're absolutely right. But actually, on your last sentence, I would say that it sounds obvious when you read it, you listen to Roberto explaining it. It wasn't obvious before, but if you think about it, I mean, as an investor, if you are a seed stage investor, you should not venture in other areas. And if you are a Series B investor, you should really not do seed rounds, thinking that you would approach them as a Series B round. So again, it seems obvious to me now that it is expressing in those simple terms, like any important thought, very clear thought. So super important. If you, as a founder, if you feel that the conversation is not going the right direction regarding expectations or terms and so on and so forth, run away, because you will spare yourself a lot of pain going forward.
No, 100%.
Absolutely agree.
And one sentence that I want to mention, which I thought was particularly interesting, was when he says, injecting large amount of capital does not accelerate a company's maturity. That's cool because that's definitely like super insightful because people think that capital is the solution. No, it's an accelerant, but it doesn't bring to product market fit. If a company doesn't have product market fit, capital by itself is not enough. So it's a necessary condition, but not so sufficient. That's what is interesting, and there is a lot of sophistication
Lovely.
going around it. Yeah.
Super.
All right. So, having said that, Nick, thank you so much for joining this week's episode. And let's see what happened next week. And I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Jack. It was a pleasure as always. Take care, and everybody, ciao. See you in a week.